Hey guys, tonight we're whisking you away to a medieval village at dawn, where the air smells of fresh hay and the faint tang of a betrothal contract brewing. You're a 14-year-old girl, tangled in a scratchy wool blanket, the straw mattress beneath you poking like a bed of tiny medieval pitchforks. Outside, a rooster crows with all the subtlety of a town crier, and your family's already stirring, whispering about the deal that'll change your life marriage. At 14 to a man you've barely met. You blink awake, heart racing, knowing today's the start of a journey you're not sure you're ready for. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this without a few awkward moments and a lifetime of chores. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I love picturing where you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You roll over, the straw crunching beneath you, and the chill of the dirt floor seeps through the gaps in your blanket. It's the 14th century, somewhere in rural England, and your village is a patchwork of timber frame huts, each one leaning like it's whispering secrets to its neighbor. Mainstream fact in medieval Europe, girls as young as 12 could be legally married, often to secure alliances or land, though 14 was more common for peasants like you. Your parents have been planning this for months, and today's the day they'll start preparing you for a betrothal that's more about survival than romance. You pull the blanket tighter, but the cold air sneaks in, nibbling at your toes. Your younger brother's already up, poking the fire pit in the center of the hut, sending smoke curling up to the thatched roof's hole, your only chimney, which lets in more rain than it lets out smoke. You sit up, rubbing sleep from your eyes, and glance around the single room that's your entire world. Your parents are huddled in the corner, their voices low but urgent, and you catch your name, Eleanor, slipping through their murmurs. They're talking about the dowry, the suitor, the priest's approval. You're 14, barely old enough to understand what marriage means, but old enough to know it's not optional. Quirky tidbits, some medieval families believed a girl's first woven cloth brought luck to her marriage. So you've been practicing with a loom since you were 10, hoping your uneven napkins might charm a husband, or at least his mother. Historians still argue whether this was superstition or just a way to make girls useful early. Joke 1, why's a medieval bride like a merchant's cart? She's loaded with goods and sent off with no say. The hut's bustling now. Your sister, Alice, is sweeping the floor, kicking up dust that makes you sneeze. And your mother's pulling a wooden chest from under a pile of blankets. It's your dowry chest, the one you've been filling since you could hold a needle. And today, it's getting a final check. You swing your legs off the mattress, your bare feet hitting the icy dirt, and you wince. Your tunic's a faded russet, patched at the elbows, and smells faintly of yesterday's stew. Privacy's a dream here. Your whole family shares this room, along with a chicken that's decided it's family too. You step over a stray feather, wondering how you'll survive a day of betrothal talk, let alone a lifetime as someone's wife. Outside, the village is waking up with its usual chaos: dogs barking, a cart squeaking, someone shouting about a runaway goat. You're not just Eleanor anymore. You're a bargaining chip, a future wife, a girl about to be sold off for a few acres or a promise of protection. Your stomach churns, but there's no time to dwell. Your mother's calling you to help with the dowry, and the day's already rolling faster than you can keep up. You take a deep breath, the smoky air stinging your lungs, and brace for what's coming. Joke 2, why's a medieval betrothal like a market deal? You're the goods, and everyone's haggling over the price. You're standing in the smoky hut, the straw mattress still rumpled behind you, your bare feet cold against the dirt floor as your mother's voice pulls you into the day. The fire pit crackles weakly, casting flickering shadows on the timber walls, and the air smells of burnt wood and the chicken that's pecking at a stray crumb near your brother's feet. Your parents are huddled near the dowry chest, their whispers growing sharper, And you catch the words 14 and Robert again, your suitor's name. A man you've only heard about in passing. You're barely awake, but the reality of your betrothal at 14 is sinking in like a stone in the village, well, heavy and unavoidable. Your mother turns to you, her face lined with worry, and gestures to the chest. Eleanor, come here, we need to settle this before the priest arrives. Your father's pacing, muttering about the Lord's approval, while your sister, Alice, watches from the corner, her broom forgotten. Mainstream fact in medieval Europe, marriages were often arranged by families to secure economic stability or social ties, and for girls like you, betrothals at 14 were standard, especially among peasants who needed extra hands for labor. You shuffle over, the russet tunic scratching at your neck, and kneel beside the chest, its wood worn smooth from years of handling. Inside, there's a stack of linens you've sewn rough, but yours along with a few clay cups and a copper pot your mother's adding as a gift for your new household. Your parents' whispers grow clearer as you unfold a linen sheet. Checking for moth holes? Robert's family has the land by the river, your father says, his voice low. We can't afford to lose this match. Your mother nods, but her eyes dart to you, and you feel the weight of their expectations. You're not just a daughter anymore. You're a deal to be sealed. Quirky tidbit, some medieval parents sprinkled dried lavender in dowry chests, believing it warded off bad spirits and ensured a peaceful marriage. Your chest has a few wilted sprigs, their scent long faded, and you wonder if they'll do anything for a marriage you're not sure you want. Historians still argue whether this was a genuine belief or just a way to make the linen smell less musty. Joke 1, why is a dowry chest like a medieval dating profile? It's all your best assets, packed and ready to impress. You fold the linen, trying to ignore the knot in your stomach, but your mother's voice cuts through. He's 20 to Eleanor, a good age. Steady, you'll manage. You nod, but 22 feels ancient, and manage sounds like something you'd say about a stubborn goat. Not a husband, your father chimes in. The priest will want a word before the betrothal. Robert's family is coming at noon. Noon? That's hours away. But it feels like minutes. You're 14, and the idea of leaving this hut, your family, your lumpy mattress, even that annoying chicken makes your chest tighten. Joke 2, why is a medieval suitor like a tax collector? You don't want to meet him, but you've got no choice. The hut's air feels heavier now, the smoke stinging your eyes as you stack the linens back in the chest. Your brother's poking the fire again, sending up a cloud of ash, and Alice is staring at you like you're a cautionary tale. You want to ask your parents why it has to be now, why it has to be Robert, but you know the answer: survival. The village is small. The harvest was lean last year, and your family needs this alliance to secure a better plot of land. You close the chest, the lavender sprigs doing nothing for the dread creeping in. Outside, the village hums dogs barking, a neighbor shouting about a lost pig, and you wish you could run out and join the chaos. Just for a moment, before your life changes forever. Joke 3, why is a betrothal like a village feast? Everyone's excited, but you're not sure you'll like the taste. You're still kneeling by the dowry chest, the faint scent of faded lavender clinging to your fingers as you close the lid, the weight of your parents' whispers about Robert and the betrothal pressing down like a heavy yoke. The hut's smoky air stings your eyes, and the fire pit's weak flames offer little warmth against the morning chill seeping through the timber walls. Your mother's already bustling, her hands moving with purpose, and she pulls you to your feet with a firm tug. Eleanor, we need to finish this chest. Robert's family will expect a proper dowry. You nod, though your stomach's twisting tighter than the knots in your sister's abandoned broom, and you're starting to realize how little say you have in this whole affair. Your mother opens the chest again, and you start packing with more focus, folding each item like it's a sacred ritual. Mainstream fact dowries in medieval Europe were essential for marriages, often including linens, cookware, and sometimes livestock, meant to prove a bride's worth and help start her new household. You lay in a stack of napkins you stitched last summer uneven, but they're yours alongside a pair of wool blankets your mother wove years ago, their edges frayed but warm. There's a small iron pot, dented from use, and a wooden spoon you carved when you were 12, its handle a little lopsided. You trace the spoon's rough edge, wondering if Robert will notice the effort or if he'll just see the dents and frayed threads. Your mother adds a sack of dried beans, muttering, "It's not much, but it'll do." You're 14 and this chest is your ticket to a new life, whether you like it or not. As you fold a final linen sheet, your mother slips in a tiny pouch of dried herbs, rosemary, and thyme tied with a bit of twine. Quirky tidbits some medieval families included herb pouches in dowries, believing they'd bring fertility and harmony to the marriage, though they were often just a practical gift for cooking. You're not sure if rosemary will make Robert like you more, but you'll take any help you can get. Historians still argue whether these herbs were symbolic or just a way to mask the smell of a poorly washed groom. Joke 1: why is a dowry herb pouch like a medieval love potion? It's supposed to work magic, but you're not holding your breath. You glance at your father, who's now sitting on a stool, whittling a stick with a knife, his face tense. The Lord Steward will want a cut of the beans. He grumbles, and your mother sighs. We'll manage. You're starting to see the bigger picture. This marriage isn't just about you. It's about land, labor, and survival. Your family's plot barely grows enough to feed you all, and Robert's family has a better strip by the river. You pack the last napkin, your hands trembling slightly, and your mother gives you a quick pat on the shoulder, her version of comfort. You're doing fine. Eleanor, she says, but her voice wavers, and you wonder if she's as nervous as you are. Joke 2: why is a dowry like a medieval tax? Everyone wants a piece, and you're left with the scraps. The hut feels smaller now, the walls closing in as you stand, brushing dust off your russet tunic. Outside, the village is in full swing, dogs barking, a cart rumbling, someone shouting about a stray pig. You hear Alice giggling as she sweeps, probably relieved it's not her turn yet. Your brother's still poking the fire, sending up a cloud of ash that makes you cough, and you're tempted to snap at him, but you don't have the energy. The dowry chest is ready, sitting by the door like a silent judge, and you know it's more than just linens and pots. It's your worth, packed into a box. You're 14, and this chest is your future, for better or worse. Joke 3: why is packing a dowry like a medieval exam? You're being judged, and you're pretty sure you didn't study enough. You step away from the dowry chest, its lid now closed, the faint scent of rosemary lingering in the smoky air of the hut, as your mother brushes her hands on her apron and nods toward the door. The firepit's embers glow weakly, and your brother's still poking at them, sending up little puffs of ash that make you wave your hand in front of your face. Your father's voice cuts through the haze, gruff and urgent. Eleanor, they're here, Robert's family. Get to the well, quick. Your stomach lurches, the weight of the morning crashing down like a cartload of turnips, and you're suddenly aware of your unwashed russet tunic and the straw still clinging to your hair. You're 14, and you're about to meet the man you're supposed to marry, whether you're ready or not. You grab a wooden bucket, more for something to hold than any real need for water, and hurry out, the cold mud squelching under your bare feet as you cross the village path. The well is the heart of the village, a stone circle surrounded by gossiping neighbors and bleating sheep, and today, it's where your future waits. Mainstream fact in medieval Europe: betrothals often involved a public meeting, sometimes at a communal spot like a well, to show the village the match was official and to settle any disputes early. You spot Robert immediately. He's taller than you expected, maybe 22, with a scruffy beard and a teal tunic that's seen better days. He's standing with his father, a broad man with a face like a weathered plow, and they're both watching you approach. You try to smile, but it feels more like a grimace, and you're pretty sure your face is as red as the village's prize rooster. Robert's father gives you a curt nod, but Robert just stares, his eyes narrowing as if he's sizing up a cow at market. You set the bucket down, your hands trembling, and manage a small curtsy your mother drilled that into you last week. Eleanor, Robert says, his voice gruff but not unkind. You're younger than I thought. You bite your lip, unsure if that's a compliment or complaint, and mumble, "I'm 14, sir." He nods, scratching his beard, and you wonder if he's as nervous as you are. Quirky tidbit, some medieval suitors brought a small token to their first meeting, like a carved wooden ring, to show intent, though it was often more for the parents than the bride. Robert's empty-handed, and you're secretly relieved. You wouldn't know what to do with a ring anyway. Historians still argue whether these tokens were romantic gestures or just another part of the deal. Joke one why's a medieval suitor like a village dog. He's always sniffing around, hoping for a good match. The well's a bustle of activity. 2 women are hauling water, their eyes flicking toward you, and a kid nearby is chasing a goose, oblivious to the drama unfolding. Robert's father steps forward, his voice booming. "We've agreed on the land by the river. Your father's plot joins ours after the wedding." You nod, though you're not sure what that means for you. And Robert finally speaks again. "You're good with a needle. They say you think of the uneven napkins in your dowry chest and..." Shrug. "I try." He grunts, which you hope means he's impressed. You're desperate to fill the silence, but all you can think about is how you'd rather be back in the hut, hiding under your scratchy blanket. Joke 2, why's meeting a suitor like fetching water? It's a chore, and you're praying it doesn't spill over. You shift your weight, the bucket still empty at your feet, and glance at Robert again. He's not awful looking, but he's 22, and the age gap feels like a chasm. You wonder what he thinks of you, a scrawny 14-year-old with muddy feet and a nervous smile. The village hums around you, someone shouting about a lost pig, and the women at the well are whispering now, their voices a soft buzz. You're the center of attention, and you hate it. Your hands fidget with the bucket's handle, and you're already dreaming of a nap. But there's no escape. Robert's father claps his son on the shoulder, saying, "She'll do," and you feel like a loaf of bread being inspected at the market. Joke 3, why's a betrothal meeting like a village fair? Everyone's watching, and you're the prize nobody asked for. You're still at the well, the cold stone edge pressing against your leg as you clutch the empty wooden bucket, the village buzzing around you like a hive of nosy bees. Robert and his father have just walked off, their teal tunics fading into the crowd, leaving you with the echo of Robert's gruff, "She'll do," and the weight of your new reality. Your cheeks are still burning from the awkward meeting, and you can feel the eyes of the women at the well on you, their whispers sharp as thorns. You dip your bucket into the water, more to look busy than because you need it, and haul it up, the icy splash soaking the hem of your russet tunic. You're 14 betrothed, and already the talk of the village, whether you like it or not. As you turn to head back, you catch snippets of conversation from the women. One mentions the miller's wife. Another mutters about how quickly your family arranged this match. Mainstream fact in medieval villages, gossip was a powerful social force, often shaping reputations and influencing marriages, especially for the young girls like you, whose betrothals were public affairs meant to solidify community ties. You keep your head down, the bucket sloshing against your hip, but you can't help overhearing Agnes, a stout woman with a face like a weathered apple, say, "14's young. Even for Robert, he's 22, isn't he?" Her friend nods, smirking. Her father must have pushed hard for that riverland. You wince. wishing you could disappear into the muddy path. But there's no escaping the village's rumor mill. Everyone knows your business, and they're not shy about sharing their opinions. You pass a group of kids playing near a cart, one of them pointing at you and giggling, and you're pretty sure they've heard about your betrothal already. Quirky tidbits: some medieval villages had a tradition of betrothal bells, where the church would ring a single bell to announce an engagement, letting the whole village know to start talking. Your village doesn't do that, thankfully, but the gossip spreads faster than a fire in a thatched roof. Historians still argue whether this bell ringing was a formal custom or just a way for priests to meddle in village drama. Joke 1: why is village gossip like a medieval stew? It's got a bit of everything, and it leaves a bad taste. You're almost back at your hut when you spot Watt, the turnip-obsessed farmer who's always got a story. Leaning against a fence, he waves you over, grinning like he's just won a pig at a fair, and you know he's heard about Robert, Eleanor betrothed already. Ralph's leeches didn't scare him off. You blush, remembering how Watt spread that rumor about your toothache last month, and you mutter, "It wasn't leeches." Watt, he laughs, loud enough to draw more eyes, and you hurry past, the bucket sloshing in protest. You're starting to see why your mother warned you about keeping your head down. Gossip here isn't just talk, it's a weapon, and a girl's reputation can crumble faster than a stale loaf. Joke 2: why is Watt like a medieval bard? He's always singing your business to the wrong tune. The village hums with its usual chaos: dogs barking, a cart creaking, someone shouting about a stray goat, but it feels louder today, like the whole place is whispering your name. You've heard stories of girls shunned over rumors one was accused of stealing a neighbor's hen and lost her betrothal. Another was whispered to be too friendly with a merchant and ended up unwed. You're careful, but that doesn't stop the chatter. As you reach your hut, you spot your sister, Alice, peeking out the door, her eyes wide. "What are they saying?" she asks, and you shrug. "That I'm too young, probably." She giggles, but you're not laughing. You set the bucket down, the water sloshing onto the dirt floor, and try to shake off the feeling of being watched. Joke 3: why is a betrothal like a village pig? Chase: everyone's running their mouths, and you're the one getting caught. You're standing just inside the hut, the sloshing bucket of well water at your feet, the muddy path outside still buzzing with the village's whispers about your betrothal to Robert. The air inside is thick with the smell of burnt wood and the faint tang of last night's stew. And your sister, Alice, is still peeking out the door, giggling about the gossip you just escaped. Your mother's voice snaps you back to reality. Sharp but tired Eleanor. "Stop dawdling. We've got to talk about the church." You turn, wiping your hands on your russet tunic, and see her standing by the fire pit, her face set in that no-nonsense way that means business. You're 14, and while the village's rumor mill is a headache, the church's rules for your marriage are a whole new beast you're about to face. You shuffle over, the dirt floor cold under your bare feet, and sit on a wobbly stool as your mother begins. Mainstream fact in medieval Europe: the Catholic Church had a tight grip on marriage, requiring a public betrothal, parental consent for girls under 21, and a ceremony at the church door to make it official, all to ensure the union was sacred and legal. "The priest will want to see you and Robert tomorrow," your mother says, stirring the fire with an iron poker. "He'll ask if you're willing," but she trails off, and you both know willing is more of a formality. You're 14, and the church might care about your soul, but it cares more about the rules. Your father's already secured the priest's approval with a small sack of barley as a donation. You nod, trying to look like you understand, but your stomach's churning harder than the village mill. Your mother keeps going, her voice low and steady, like she's reciting a prayer. You can't be cousins, even third cousins, and there can't be any prior promises. Robert's clear on that. Thank the saints. You blink, wondering how many secret betrothals the priest has sniffed out with that rule. Quirky tidbit: some medieval couples tried to get around the church's rules by claiming a private vow in a field or barn, which was technically binding but often led to disputes when one party denied it. You're glad Robert's family isn't the sneaky type, though you wouldn't put it past Watt to try something like that with his turnip fortune. Historians still argue whether these private vows were romantic defiance or just a loophole for desperate lovers. Joke 1. Why is a private vow like a medieval prank? You think you've won, but the priest always catches you. You shift on the stool, the wood creaking, and your mother adds, "The church says you're of age at 14, but you'll need to prove you're not simple-minded." You frown, simple-minded. You've been weaving since you were 10 and can haggle with the best of them at the market. But the church has its ways, and you've heard of girls being quizzed on prayers or basic sums to prove they're fit for marriage. Your mother sighs. "You'll do fine, just don't mention that time you lost the goat." You blush, remembering how you chased that goat halfway to the next village, and mutter, "I won't." Joke 2. Why is the priest like a medieval teacher? He's always testing you, and you're always failing. The hut feels smaller now, the timber walls closing in as your mother keeps talking about the church's expectations. You'll need witnesses for the betrothal, and the priest will announce it at mass. So the whole village knows more fuel for the gossip fire you just dodged at the well. You're starting to see why your mother's so tense. One wrong step, and the church could delay the marriage, or worse, declare it invalid. You glance at the dowry chest by the door, its contents suddenly feeling like a bribe to keep everyone happy: Robert's family, the priest, the Lord. Your brother's still poking the fire, oblivious, and Alice is now braiding her hair, humming softly. You wish you could be that carefree, but the church's rules are a heavy cloak you can't shrug off. Joke 3. Why is a church betrothal like a village tax? It's mandatory, and everyone's got their hand out. You're still perched on the wobbly stool in the smoky hut, the fire pit casting faint shadows on the timber walls, as your mother's words about the church's marriage rules linger in the air like the smell of burnt wood. The dowry chest sits by the door, a silent reminder of your betrothal to Robert, and the village gossip you overheard at the well is still buzzing in your mind. Your mother sets the iron poker down with a clang, wiping her hands on her apron, and says, "Enough of that. Robert's family will be here soon for the betrothal ceremony." You nod, your stomach twisting tighter than the twine on your dowry's herb pouch, and you realize the day's about to get even more chaotic. You're 14, and this ceremony is the first official step toward a marriage you're still trying to wrap your head around. You stand, brushing ash off your russet tunic, and follow your mother outside, where the village path is already bustling with midday activity: kids chasing a stray goose, a cart creaking under a load of firewood, and the ever-present hum of gossip. The betrothal ceremony is happening in the village square, a patch of packed dirt near the church, and your family's scrambling to make it look proper. Mainstream fact medieval betrothals were often public events, held in communal spaces like a village square, to ensure witnesses could confirm the agreement and prevent future disputes over the union. Your father's already there, setting up a rickety table with a jug of ale and a loaf of rye bread hospitality for Robert's family, though you're pretty sure the ale's more for your father's nerves than theirs. You help Alice carry a wooden bench, nearly tripping over a stray chicken, and the square starts filling with curious neighbors, their whispers prickling your skin like nettles. Robert and his family arrive, his father leading the way with that same weathered plow face you saw at the well, and Robert trailing behind in his teal tunic, looking as uncomfortable as you feel. The ceremony's simple but tense. Your father and Robert's father clasp hands, sealing the deal with a few gruff words about land and labor, while the village watches like it's a midsummer play. You're standing off to the side, trying not to fidget, but your hands won't stop twisting the hem of your tunic. Quirky tidbits: some medieval betrothals included a symbolic gift of gloves between families, meant to show good faith, though they were often just a practical item for the harsh winters. Your family skipped the gloves too poor for that, but Robert's father hands over a small sack of barley as a token, and your father nods. Though you can tell he's calculating how much the Lord's steward will take, historians still argue whether these gifts were truly symbolic or just another way to sweeten the deal. Joke 1. Why is a betrothal gift like a medieval IOU? It's a promise, but you're not sure it'll pay off. The tension spikes when your uncle, who's had too much ale already, starts arguing with Robert's father about the Riverland's boundaries. That strip by the oak's hours, he slurs, and your father hisses at him to hush. But the damage is done. Robert's father's face darkens, and the crowd murmurs, sensing drama. You glance at Robert, hoping he'll step in, but he's staring at the ground, his beard hiding whatever he's feeling. You're 14 caught in the middle of a family spat you didn't sign up for, and you wish you could run back to the hut and hide with the chicken. Joke 2, why is a betrothal ceremony like a village brawl? Everyone's got an opinion, and someone's always swinging. Your mother pulls you closer, whispering, "Stand straight. Eleanor, they're watching." You straighten, though your knees are wobbling, and the ceremony lurches forward. The men settle their argument barely, and your father toasts to the match with the ale, spilling half of it in his haste. The crowd claps, some more enthusiastically than others, and you catch Agnes from the well giving you a pitying look. You're officially betrothed now, a step closer to being Robert's wife, and the village's eyes are on you, weighing your every move. You force a smile, but inside, you're a mess of nerves and dread. Joke 3, why is a betrothal like a village feast? It's loud, messy, and you're not sure you're full when it's over. You're back inside the hut, the chaos of the betrothal ceremony in the village square still ringing in your ears like the church bell on a feast day. The taste of your father's spilled ale lingering in the air. The firepit's embers glow faintly, casting a warm flicker across the timber walls, and the dowry chest by the door seems to mock you with its readiness for your new life with Robert. Your mother's bustling again, her apron dusted with flour from the bread she baked for the ceremony, and she gestures for you to join her by the fire. "Eleanor, sit. We've got to talk about what's next," she says, her voice softer now, but still firm, like she's trying to brace you for what's coming. You're 14, officially betrothed, and now you're about to learn what being a medieval wife really means, whether you're ready or not. You settle on the stool, the same wobbly one from earlier, and your mother kneels beside you, pulling a wooden spindle from a basket to keep her hands busy while she talks. Mainstream fact in medieval Europe. A wife's duties were extensive, centered on managing the household cooking, weaving, gardening, and child-rearing, while also supporting her husband's labor, often under the church's expectation of submission. "You'll be running Robert's hut soon," she begins, her spindle whirring as she spins wool into thread. "That means cooking everyday pottage, bread, maybe fish if he's lucky with a river." You nod, though the thought of cooking for a man you barely know makes your stomach churn worse than the village's cloudy well water. You've helped with pottage before cabbage, leeks, whatever hasn't rotted, but the idea of doing it daily, for Robert, feels like a sentence. Your mother keeps going, her hands moving rhythmically. "You'll need to weave. Too, Robert's tunic won't mend itself, and he'll expect blankets for winter." You think of the uneven napkins in your dowry chest and wince, wondering if Robert will notice your shaky stitches. She hands you the spindle, showing you how to twist the wool just right, and you fumble, the thread snapping almost immediately. "Patience, Eleanor," she sighs. But you're already imagining a lifetime of broken threads and burnt pottage. Quirky tidbits some medieval wives kept a household charm, like a dried acorn or a sprig of thyme, tucked in their apron, believing it brought harmony to their chores. Your mother pulls a small acorn from her pocket, pressing it into your hand with a faint smile. "It helped me with your father," she says, and you're not sure if you believe her. Historians still argue whether these charms were superstition or just a mental trick to cope with endless work. Joke 1. Why is a household charm like a medieval recipe? It's supposed to make things better, but you're still stirring the pot. You try the spindle again, the wool tangling around your fingers, and your mother moves on to gardening. You'll tend the plot behind his hut leeks, turnips, maybe some herbs if the soil's good. You've helped in your family's garden, but the idea of starting fresh on Robert's land feels daunting. You're 14 and the list of duties is growing faster than the weeds you'll be pulling. "And children," your mother adds, her voice dropping. "You'll need to bear children soon." You blush, the acorn in your hand suddenly feeling heavier. And you're grateful the church doesn't expect you to start that part right away. Joke 2. Why is a medieval wife like a village garden? You're always planting something, and the harvest is never guaranteed. The hut's quiet now, save for the crackle of the fire and your brother's soft snoring in the corner. He's fallen asleep on a pile of straw, oblivious to your lesson. Your sister, Alice, is watching from the doorway, her eyes wide, and you wonder if she's taking notes for her own future. Your mother's hands slow on the spindle, and she looks at you, her expression softening. "It's a lot, I know, but you'll learn, Eleanor. We all do." You nod, though you're not sure you believe her. The weight of your new role: cook, weaver, gardener. Mother is settling on your shoulders, and you're already dreaming of a nap. Joke 3. Why is being a wife like a medieval loom? It's a lot of threads, and you're tangled before you even start. You're still in the hut, the weight of your mother's lesson on wifely duties pressing down like a sack of barley. The acorn charm she gave you now tucked into your russet tunic's pocket as a small, dubious comfort. The fire pit's embers are fading, leaving the air smoky and cool, and your sister, Alice, has slipped outside, probably to escape the heavy talk of cooking, weaving, and babies. Your mother stands, brushing her hands on her apron, and says, "Come on, Eleanor, we've got to help with the feast for the betrothal." You nod, your fingers still tangled from the spindle lesson, and follow her out into the village square, where the chaos of the earlier ceremony has morphed into preparations for a celebratory meal. You're 14, betrothed to Robert, and now you're about to dive into the communal effort of feeding the village to mark the occasion. The square is a whirlwind of activity. Tables are being dragged into place. A fire crackles under a spit where a pig is roasting, and the air smells of sizzling fat and fresh bread. Mainstream fact medieval betrothals often included a feast, even among peasants, to publicly celebrate the union and strengthen community ties, with food shared to show goodwill between families. You're handed a wooden tray of turnips by Agnes, the village gossip from the well, who gives you a knowing smile. "Big day, Eleanor," she says, and you mumble a reply, focusing on the turnips to avoid her gaze. You carry the tray to a table where women are chopping vegetables, leeks, cabbages, a few sad-looking onions, and you join in, your knife slipping on the tough skins as you try to keep up. The pig's aroma makes your stomach growl, a reminder of how little you've eaten today. But you know the best bits will go to Robert's family and the Lord's steward, not you. Your mother's across the square, kneading dough with a few other women, her hands dusted with rye flour as she shapes loaves for the communal oven, a stone dome at the square's edge, already glowing with heat. Quirky tidbits: some medieval villages added a betrothal loaf to the feast, a bread shaped like a knot to symbolize the binding of the couple, though it was often just a practical way to use up extra dough. Your mother's not making anything fancy, but she does slip a sprig of rosemary into one loaf, muttering, "For luck." And you wonder if it's the same kind of luck she promised with the acorn charm. Historians still argue whether these symbolic foods were tradition or just a way to make the feast feel special on a budget. Joke 1, why's a betrothal loaf like a medieval promise? It's a nice gesture, but you're still hungry. You chop another turnip, your hands sticky with juice, and glance around the square. Robert's family is here, his father talking loudly with yours about the riverland, while Robert himself stands awkwardly by the spit, poking at the pig with a stick. The village kids are running around, stealing bits of bread when no one's looking, and you spot Alice giggling with a friend, her hands free of work while you're stuck with the turnips. You're 14 and this feast is supposed to be for you, but it feels more like a performance for everyone else. The women around you chatter some about the harvest, others about a neighbor's sick cow, but you catch your name again, paired with whispers about how young you are. Joke 2, why's a betrothal feast like a village rumor? It's got your name on it, and everyone's chewing it over. You finish the turnips and move to help your mother with the bread, carrying a stack of loaves to the oven. The heat hits you like a wave, and you're sweating as you slide them in, the rosemary loaf on top. The square's filling up now, villagers gathering with their wooden bowls, eager for a rare taste of meat. You're not sure if you're supposed to feel celebrated or inspected, but the pig's almost ready, and the feast is about to start. You wipe your brow, wishing you could sneak away with Alice, but there's no escaping this. You're the bride-to-be, and the village expects you to play the part, even if all you want is a nap. Joke 3, why's a feast like a medieval marriage? It's a lot of work, and you're not sure you'll enjoy the main course. You're in the bustling village square, the heat from the communal oven still clinging to your russet tunic as you wipe flour off your hands, the scent of freshly baked bread and roasting pig filling the air. The betrothal feast is in full swing. Villagers are crowded around tables, their wooden bowls piled with turnips and cabbage, while the lucky ones snag slivers of meat from the spit. Your mother's rosemary loaf is being passed around, and you're trying to blend into the background, but all eyes seem to find you, the 14-year-old bride-to-be. Robert's family is seated at the head table, and your father's already poured them more ale than he can afford. You're standing near the edge of the crowd, a wooden bowl of pottage in your hands, when your mother nudges you forward. Eleanor, go talk to Robert. It's time you two spoke properly, she whispers, her tone leaving no room for argument. You're about to have your first real conversation with your future husband, and your stomach's churning worse than the village mill on a windy day. You shuffle over, the pottage sloshing in your bowl, and Robert looks up from his own meal, a chunk of bread halfway to his mouth. He's 22, his teal tunic stained with grease from the pig, and his scruffy beard makes him look older than he is. Mainstream fact in medieval betrothals. Couples often had little chance to speak privately before marriage, as interactions were heavily supervised to ensure propriety and prevent disputes over the match. You sit on the bench across from him, your hands trembling as you set the bowl down and manage a weak, "Hello, Robert." He grunts, swallowing his bread, and says, "Eleanor, you helped with the feast?" You nod, pointing to the rosemary loaf on the table, and mumble, "I chopped the turnips, and my mother baked that." He glances at the loaf, then back at you, and nods slowly, like he's trying to think of something to say. The silence stretches, broken only by the chatter of the feast and a kid nearby yelling about a stolen onion. You shift, the bench creaking under you, and try to fill the gap. Do you fish in the river, much you ask, remembering his family's land? He shrugs. Sometimes. Caught a trout last week. You nod, pretending that's fascinating, but inside, you're screaming for something, anything, to make this less awkward. Quirky tidbit, some medieval couples use betrothal feasts to exchange small personal tokens, like a woven ribbon or a carved wooden spoon, as a way to break the ice. Though it was more common among wealthier families, you've got nothing to give. And Robert doesn't seem the ribbon type. So you're stuck with small talk about fish. Historians still argue whether these tokens helped couples bond or just added pressure to an already tense moment. Joke 1, why is talking to a suitor like fishing? You're casting for words, but all you catch is silence. You take a bite of pottage, the cabbage tasting even sadder than usual, and Robert finally speaks again. You're young, he says, his voice low, but my father says you're hardworking. You're not sure if that's a compliment or a warning, but you mutter, I've been weaving since I was 10. He nods, scratching his beard, and you wonder if he's thinking about your uneven napkins from the dowry chest. The feast hums around you, your father's laughing too loudly. Robert's father is arguing with someone about taxes, and Agnes is watching you from across the square, probably cooking up a new rumor. You're 14 and this conversation feels like a test you didn't study for. Joke 2, why is a betrothal chat like a medieval dance? You're stepping on each other's toes, and there's no music. You're about to ask about his hut when a villager stumbles over, sloshing ale on your sleeve, and slurs. To the happy couple, Robert raises his mug, but you just smile weakly, wishing you could disappear. The man staggers off, and Robert looks at you, his expression unreadable. It'll be fine. Eleanor, he says, and you're not sure if he's reassuring you or himself. You nod, taking another bite of pottage to avoid replying, and glance at the rosemary loaf, hoping its luck kicks in soon. The feast is winding down, but your new life with Robert is just beginning, and you're already dreaming of a nap. Joke 3, why is a feast talk like a medieval sermon? It's long, awkward, and you're praying for it to end. You're slipping away from the feast in the village square, the taste of sad pottage still on your tongue, and Robert's gruff, "It'll be fine," echoing in your ears, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows over the muddy paths. The celebration is winding down, villagers are clearing tables, kids are chasing the last bits of bread, and your father's laughter still rings out, fueled by too much ale. You're 14 betrothed, and the awkward conversation with Robert has left you feeling more like a stranger than a future wife. You duck into the hut, grateful for the smoky quiet, and find your sister, Alice, already there, a pile of undyed wool at her feet. Eleanor, Mother says we're to start on your wedding dress, she says, her voice a mix of excitement and pity. You're about to stitch the dress you'll wear to marry Robert, and the thought makes your hands shake more than the spindle lesson did. You sit beside her on the dirt floor, the fire pit's faint glow warming your legs, and pull a length of wool fabric from a wicker basket, undyed, rough, but the best your family can afford. Mainstream fact in medieval Europe. Peasant wedding dresses were simple, often just a cleaned up version of a girl's best tunic, dyed with whatever was on hand like woad for blue or madder for red, though many stayed plain due to cost. You've got no dye, so this dress will be a dull beige, but your mother wants it to look proper for the church ceremony. Alice hands you a bone needle and a skein of thread, her fingers nimble from years of practice, and you start stitching a hem, your stitches uneven but determined. It'll look nice, Alice says, though you can tell she's trying to convince herself as much as you. You're 14 and this dress feels more like a costume for a role you're not ready to play. The fabric scratches against your fingers, and you accidentally prick your thumb, a tiny bead of blood staining the wool. Careful, Alice whispers, passing you a scrap of cloth to dab it off, and you sigh, wishing you could stitch as well as she does. Quirky tidbits, some medieval bride sewed a small charm into their wedding dress, like a dried flower or a bit of iron, believing it would ward off bad spirits on the wedding day. Your mother slips in, her apron still dusted with flour from the feast, and hands you a dried daisy. Sew it into the hem for luck, she says, and you tuck it into the fabric, hoping it'll do more than the rosemary loaf did at the feast. Historians still argue whether these charms were superstition or a way to feel some control in an arranged marriage. Joke 1. Why is a wedding charm like a medieval prayer? You're not sure it works, but you're desperate enough to try. You keep stitching, the needle slipping as you try to make the hem straight, and Alice chatters about the feast, how Watt tripped over a bench, how Agnes gossiped about your hasty betrothal. You're half listening, your mind on Robert's words and the life waiting for you. The dress takes shape slowly, a simple tunic with long sleeves and a slightly flared skirt, nothing like the fine silks you've heard nobles wear. You're stitching your future into this fabric, and it feels heavier with every thread. Will Robert like it, you ask Alice, and she shrugs. He'd better he's getting you, isn't he? You smile, but the knot in your stomach doesn't loosen. Joke 2. Why is stitching a wedding dress like a medieval betrothal? It's full of pricks, and you're stuck with the result. The hut's quiet now, save for the soft crackle of the fire and the rustle of the chicken in the corner. Your mother's gone back outside to help clean up, leaving you and Alice to finish the dress. You're almost done with the hem when you notice the daisy charm has slipped out. You fumble to sew it back in, your fingers clumsy with exhaustion. The dress isn't perfect, but it's yours. A beige symbol of the life you're stepping into. You're 14 and every stitch feels like a countdown to the church door, where you'll stand with Robert and say words you barely understand. Joke 3. Why is a wedding dress like a medieval map? It's guiding you somewhere, but you're not sure you want to go. You're sitting on the dirt floor of the hut, the rough wool of your wedding dress folded neatly beside you, the dried daisy charm now securely sewn into the hem after your clumsy stitching with Alice. The fire pit's glow has faded to a dull red, and the air smells of damp earth and the chicken that's still rustling in the corner, probably dreaming of the crumbs from the betrothal feast. It's the day after the feast, and the village is quieter now, the chaos of yesterday replaced by the usual hum of work carts creaking, sheep bleating, someone shouting about a lost hoe. Your mother's voice pulls you from your thoughts. Eleanor, the priest wants to see you and Robert before the wedding. Let's go. You stand, brushing dust off your russet tunic, and follow her out, your stomach knotting tighter than the thread on your dress. You're 14 and the priest's blessing is the final hurdle before you're officially bound to Robert, whether you like it or not. You trudge through the muddy village path, your mother walking briskly ahead, her apron flapping as she dodges puddles. The church looms at the edge of the square, its stone walls cold and gray, the wooden door creaking as you step inside. Mainstream fact in medieval Europe. The Catholic Church required a priest's blessing for marriages, often meeting with the couple beforehand to ensure they met the church's rules: no hidden betrothals, no close kinship, and at least a nominal willingness to wed. The priest, Father Edmund, is waiting near the altar, his black robe stark against the flickering light of tallow candles. He's a wiry man with a face like a carved saint, all sharp angles and stern eyes, and he looks at you and Robert, who's already there, his teal tunic wrinkled like your two lambs he's about to shear. Eleanor, Robert, he says, his voice echoing in the empty church. Step forward. You do, your hands clasped tightly, and Robert gives you a quick glance, his expression unreadable. Father Edmund begins, his tone as cold as the stone floor beneath your feet. You're of age. Eleanor, 14, yes. You nod, though you feel about as grown as the village kids chasing geese outside. He turns to Robert. And you, 22, no prior vows. Robert shakes his head, and the priest scribbles something on a piece of parchment with a quill, the scratching sound making you flinch. Quirky tidbit, some medieval priests kept a marriage tally, a stick notched for each union they oversaw, believing it brought divine favor to their parish, though it might have just been a way to keep track of their fees. Father Edmund doesn't have a tally stick, But you wouldn't be surprised if he's counting the barley your father donated for this blessing. Historians still argue whether these tallies were spiritual or just medieval bookkeeping. Joke 1, why is a priest blessing like a village toll? You've got to pay to pass through. You understand the sacrament, Father Edmund asks, his eyes boring into you, and you nod again, though you're not sure you do. Marriage feels more like a trade deal than a holy vow. He recites a Latin prayer, the words a low drone, and you catch bits about obedience and children. Your cheeks burning at the thought. Robert stands stiffly, his hands clasped behind his back, and you wonder if he's as nervous as you are. The priest finishes, then says, "The village will hear of this at Mass, no objections. I trust you shake your head, remembering the gossip at the well and how quickly rumors spread." Joke 2. Why is a priest like a village crier? He announces your business, and you can't shut him up. The church feels colder now, the candlelight flickering as Father Edmund gives you a final, stern look. Be at the church door on the wedding day. Don't be late, he says, and you mumble, "Yes, Father." You're 14 and this blessing feels more like a warning than a comfort, the weight of the church's rules pressing down harder than ever. As you step outside, the village air hits you damp, earthy, alive, and you wish you could run back to the hut and hide under your scratchy blanket. But there's no escaping this now. The wedding's coming, and the priest's blessing has sealed your fate, whether you're ready or not. Joke 3, why is a church blessing like a medieval lock? It's official, and you're not getting out of it. You're stepping out of the church, the priest's stern blessing still echoing in your ears like a distant bell, the cold stone walls of the building fading behind you as the village air damp and earthy wraps around you. It's early morning a few days later, the sky a pale gray, and the muddy path squelches under your bare feet as you head back to the hut, your mother walking silently beside you. Today's the day, your wedding day, and your stomach's churning worse than the time you ate bad pottage at a village feast. The russet tunic you've worn all week feels heavier, and the beige wool dress you stitched with Alice, complete with its daisy charm, is waiting back at the hut. You're 14, about to marry Robert, a man you've barely spoken to, and the nerves are clawing at you like a cat on a wattle fence. You reach the hut, the familiar smoky warmth greeting you as you step inside, the fire pit crackling with fresh logs your brother must have added. Mainstream fact in medieval Europe, weddings for peasants were often held in the morning, starting with a procession to the church door where vows were exchanged publicly, a tradition meant to ensure community witnesses and church oversight. Your mother's already bustling, her hands dusted with ash as she pulls the wedding dress from the wicker basket. "Eleanor, let's get you ready," she says, her voice tight with her own nerves, and you slip behind a woven screen, your family's only nod to privacy, to change. The dress is rough against your skin, the beige wool scratching as you pull it on, but it fits, the hem brushing your ankles. Alice helps you tie a simple belt around your waist, her fingers quick, and whispers, "You look nice." You force a smile, but your reflection in a dented copper plate shows a pale, wide-eyed girl who looks more scared than nice. Joke 1, why is a wedding dress like a medieval stew? It's put together with what you've got, and you hope it's enough. Your hands tremble as you smooth the fabric, the daisy charm in the hem a small comfort, though you're not sure it's working its promised luck. Your mother brushes your hair with a wooden comb, tugging at knots, and mutters, "It'll be quick, the vows, the mass, then the feast." You nod, but quick doesn't ease the knot in your chest. Quirky tidbit, some medieval brides wore a sprig of herbs, like parsley or rosemary, pinned to their dress on the wedding day, believing it symbolized fertility and fidelity, though it might have just been a way to smell better in a crowd. Your mother pins a sprig of rosemary to your belt, the same herb she used in the betrothal loaf, and you wonder if she's hoping for double the luck. Historians still argue whether these herbs were tradition or just a practical touch for unwashed gatherings. You touch the rosemary, its sharp scent grounding you, but your stomach still flips like a fish on the riverbank. The hut feels smaller now, the timber walls closing in as your family prepares to leave. Your brother's pulling on his lease-patched tunic, grumbling about missing a morning in the fields, and Alice is braiding her hair, her eyes darting to you with a mix of awe and fear. Your father's already outside, shouting for everyone to hurry, his voice hoarse from yesterday's ale. You step out, the village waking up, around you dogs barking, a cart creaking, someone yelling about a stray pig, and you feel like the whole place is watching, waiting for you to step into your new role. You're 14 and the church door is calling, but all you can think about is how you'd rather be chasing that pig than walking to your wedding. Joke 2, why's a wedding day like a village chase? You're running towards something, but you'd rather be anywhere else. Your mother takes your arm, her grip firm, and leads you toward the square, where a small crowd is already gathering for the procession. Robert's family will meet you there, and the priest will be waiting at the church door, his quill ready to mark this day. In his records, you're sweating despite the morning chill, your palms clammy, and the rosemary scent isn't helping as much as you'd hoped. The village hums with its usual chaos, but today, it feels like a stage, and you're the unwilling star of the show. You take a deep breath, the air sharp in your lungs, and brace for what's coming. Joke 3. Why is a wedding morning like a medieval sermon? It's long, it's coming, and you're praying it's over soon. You're walking through the village, the muddy path slick beneath your bare feet, the beige wool of your wedding dress scratching at your skin as the rosemary sprig pinned to your belt fills the air with its sharp scent. Your mother's arm is linked with yours, her grip steady but tense. And behind you, your family follows your father, still hoarse from yesterday's ale, your brother grumbling about the fields, and Alice, her braid bouncing as she whispers to a cousin. The village square is alive with a small crowd, neighbors in their best tunics gathering to join the procession to the church door. There murmurs a soft hum under the bleating of sheep and the creak of a passing cart. You're 14 on your way to marry Robert, and the weight of the moment feels heavier than the dowry chest you packed days ago. The procession moves slowly, a winding line of villagers led by your father, who's holding a small branch of hazel, a traditional symbol of good fortune for the journey to the church. Mainstream fact in medieval Europe, wedding processions were a key part of peasant marriages, often starting from the bride's home and ending at the church door, where vows were exchanged publicly to ensure community support and legitimacy. You keep your eyes down, focusing on the mud squishing between your toes, but you can feel the village watching. Agnes from the well is there, whispering to a friend, and Watt, the turnip braggart, gives you a cheeky wave. Robert and his family join the procession at the square's edge, his teal tunic standing out against the gray morning, and he falls into step beside you, his boots scuffing the path. He doesn't speak, and you're grateful your nerves are already frayed like the hem of your old russet tunic. The church looms ahead, its stone walls as cold as Father Edmund's stare, and the crowd gathers closer as you near the door, their chatter fading into an expectant hush. Quirky tidbits, some medieval processions included a wedding song, a simple chant sung by the villagers to bless the couple, though it was often more about keeping the group in step than any real musical talent. Your village doesn't sing probably for the best, given your father's singing sounds like a dying goat, but a few kids hum a tune, and you catch Alice giggling at the off-key notes. Historians still argue whether these songs were a sacred tradition or just a way to make the walk less awkward. You're glad for the silence, though. Your heart's pounding loud enough to drown out any melody. Joke 1, why is a wedding procession like a medieval cart? It's slow, creaky, and everyone's along for the ride. You reach the church door, The crowd fanning out around you, and Robert stands closer, his shoulder brushing yours. You can smell the river on him, fish and damp earth, and you wonder if he's as nervous as you are. Father Edmund steps forward, his black robe fluttering in the morning breeze, and raises a hand to quiet the crowd. "We gather to witness this union," he says, his voice carrying over the murmurs, and you feel every eye on you, from Agnes's knowing smirk to your mother's anxious frown. You're 14, standing at the threshold of a new life, and the church door feels like a gate you can't turn back from. Your hands tremble, the rosemary sprig doing little to calm you, and you wish you could run back to the hut and hide with the chicken. Joke 2, why is a church door like a medieval trap? Once you're in, there's no getting out. The procession has stopped, but the village's hum continues, dogs barking in the distance, a cart rumbling far off, someone shouting about a stray pig. Your father hands the hazel branch to Robert's father, a final gesture of goodwill, and the two men nod stiffly, their agreement sealed. You glance at Robert, hoping for a reassuring look, but he's staring straight ahead, his jaw tight. The crowd presses closer, eager for the vows, and you take a shaky breath, the cold air biting your lungs. You're about to become a wife, in front of the whole village, and there's no escaping the spotlight now. Joke 3. Why is a wedding crowd like a village market? Everyone's here for the show, and you're the main stall. You're standing at the church door, the cold stone threshold beneath your bare feet, the beige wool of your wedding dress itching against your skin as the rosemary sprig pinned to your belt releases its sharp scent into the gray morning air. The village crowd surrounds you, their murmurs a low buzz, and Robert stands beside you, his teal tunic brushing your arm, his breath visible in the chilly May dawn. Father Edmund looms before you, his black robe stark against the church's gray walls, his stern eyes flicking between you and Robert as he holds a small book of prayers, ready to bind you in marriage. You're 14, about to exchange vows with a man you barely know, and the weight of the moment feels heavier than the village millstone, your heart pounding louder than the crowd's whispers. Father Edmund raises his hand again, silencing the villagers, and begins the ceremony, his voice a steady drone. Mainstream fact in medieval Europe, wedding vows were typically exchanged at the church door, not inside, a public ritual ensuring witnesses could attest to the union's legitimacy before the couple entered for a nuptial mass. Robert, do you take Eleanor to be your wife? To honor and keep her in the eyes of God, he asks. And Robert nods, his voice gruff but clear. I do. The priest turns to you, his gaze piercing. Eleanor, do you take Robert to be your husband, to obey and serve him in the eyes of God? You swallow hard, your throat dry, and manage a shaky, I do, your voice barely above a whisper. The crowd murmurs in approval, and you catch Agnes's smirk from the corner of your eye. She's probably already spinning a new rumor about your trembling. Robert takes your hand, his calloused fingers rough against your own, and slips a simple iron ring onto your finger, a symbol of the vow, cold and heavy. Quirky tidbit, some medieval couples exchanged rings made of twisted grass, or cloth if they couldn't afford metal, a temporary token until they could replace it with something sturdier. Your ring is iron, a small mercy from Robert's family, and you stare at it, the weight of it pulling you deeper into this new reality. Historians still argue whether these rings were true symbols of love or just a practical marker of ownership in a patriarchal society. You're not sure what it means to Robert, but to you, it feels like a tether you can't untie. Joke 1, why is a wedding ring like a medieval yoke? It binds you, and you're stuck carrying the load. The priest recites a Latin blessing, the words a rhythmic hum you don't understand, and you bow your head, trying to look pious while your mind races. The crowd watches, some shifting on their feet, others whispering Watt's voice carries, muttering something about turnips, and you almost laugh despite yourself. Robert's hand is still holding yours, his grip firm but not unkind, and you wonder what he's thinking. Does he feel as trapped as you do? You're 14 and the vows you just spoke feel like a spell you can't undo. The iron ring, a seal on your future. Your mother's eyes are on you, her face a mix of pride and worry, and Alice is clutching her braid, wide-eyed, as if she's seeing her own future unfold. Joke too. Why is a wedding vow like a village promise? You say it, but you're not sure you can keep it. Father Edmund finishes the blessing, his voice echoing off the church walls, and gestures for you to step inside for the mass. The crowd parts, some clapping, others calling out well wishes, and you follow Robert through the door, the iron ring cold on your finger. The church's interior is dim, the tallow candles flickering, and the air smells of wax and damp stone. You're a wife now, at least in the eyes of the village, and the reality of it hits you like a bucket of well water, icy and overwhelming. The mass is about to start, but all you can think about is the life waiting outside these walls, with Robert in a hut you've never seen. Joke 3, why is a church door vow like a medieval gate? You've crossed it, and there's no turning back now. You're stepping out of the church, the heavy wooden door creaking behind you as the nuptial mass ends. The priest's final Latin blessing still humming in your ears like a distant chant. The gray morning has softened into a pale midday light, and the village square is alive with the promise of a wedding feast, the air thick with the scent of roasting meat and fresh bread. Robert walks beside you, his teal tunic wrinkled from kneeling during the mass, and the iron ring on your finger feels heavier with every step, a constant reminder of the vows you just exchanged at the church door. You're 14, officially his wife now, and the crowd of villagers, some familiar faces, others just nosy neighbors, gathers around, their cheers and laughter washing over you as you join the revelry that marks your new beginning. The square has been transformed since the betrothal feast a few days ago. Tables are laden with rye loaves, bowls of pottage, and a spit where another pig roasts, its fat dripping into the fire with a sizzle that makes your stomach growl. Mainstream fact medieval wedding feasts were a communal affair, often held in the village square after the church ceremony, with food and ale shared to celebrate the couple and reinforce social bonds. Even if the couple themselves were too nervous to eat much, you're handed a wooden mug of ale by your father, who's already red-faced from drinking, and he claps Robert on the shoulder, shouting, to the new couple. The crowd roars, and you take a sip, the ale bitter and watery, but it's a welcome distraction from the eyes on you. Robert raises his mug, his expression softening for the first time today, and you wonder if he's as overwhelmed as you are. The villagers dive into the feast, their wooden bowls clattering as they scoop up pottage and tear into bread, while a few older women pass around slivers of pork, the best pieces going to Robert's family and the Lord Steward, who's lurking near the spit with a ledger in hand. Quirky tidbits, some medieval wedding feast included a bride's pie, a pastry filled with symbolic ingredients like nuts for fertility or honey for sweetness, though it was often just a way to use up leftovers. There's no pie today, your village is too practical for that, but your mother's baked another rosemary loaf, its scent mingling with the smoky air, and you spot Alice sneaking a piece, her grin wide as she waves at you. Historians still argue whether these symbolic foods were meant to bless the couple or just to impress the guests. You're too nervous to eat much, but you nibble on a bit of bread, the rosemary doing little to calm your nerves. Joke 1, why is a wedding feast like a medieval riddle? It's full of meaning, but you're too nervous to figure it out. A group of village kids starts a game nearby, chasing each other with sticks and shouting about ghosts, their laughter cutting through the crowd's chatter. What? The turnip braggart stands up on a bench, mug in hand, and starts telling a story about a cursed cow, his voice slurring as the crowd laughs. Robert chuckles beside you, and you force a smile. though you're more focused on the way Agnes is watching you from across the square, her whispers already spreading like wildfire. You're 14, the center of attention, and the feast feels more like a performance than a celebration. Every bite, every smile, a test of your new role as Robert's wife. Joke 2, why is a wedding crowd like a village dog? They're loud, they're everywhere, and they won't leave you alone. You take another sip of ale, the mug slippery in your hands, and Robert leans closer, his voice low. You're quiet, he says, and you shrug, muttering, "It's a lot." He nods, scratching his beard, and for a moment, you see a flicker of understanding in his eyes. The feast stretches on, the villagers growing louder with each mug of ale, and you're grateful when your mother pulls you away to help serve more bread. It gives you an excuse to move, to breathe. You're a wife now, but the revelry feels like it's for everyone else, not you. The pig's almost gone, the bread dwindling, and you're already dreading the next step, moving to Robert's hut. Joke 3. Why is a wedding feast like a medieval market? It's chaotic, and you're the goods everyone's here to see. You're slipping away from the wedding feast in the village square, the villagers' laughter and the clatter of wooden bowls fading behind you as the midday sun climbs higher, casting a pale light over the muddy paths. The iron ring on your finger feels heavier with every step, a cold reminder of the vows you spoke at the church door, and the lingering taste of ale and rosemary bread does little to settle your nerves. Robert walks beside you, his teal tunic still stained with grease from the pig, and he's carrying a small sack of leftover bread and pork, your share from the feast, though you barely ate. You're 14, officially his wife, and now you're heading to his hut, your new home, leaving behind the only life you've ever known in your family's smoky, crowded space. The path to Robert's hut winds past the village edge, near the river his family owns, the air damp with the scent of fish and wet earth. Mainstream fact in medieval Europe, newlywed peasant couples often moved into the groom's family home, or a small hut nearby, as land and resources were tied to the husband's lineage, leaving the bride to adapt to a new household and its rules. Robert's hut is a modest wattle and daub structure, smaller than your family's, with a thatched roof that sags in the middle and a single window shuttered with rough wood. He pushes the door open, the hinges creaking, and steps inside, gesturing for you to follow. "It's not much," he says, his voice gruff but not unkind. "But it's ours." You step in, the dirt floor cold under your bare feet, and blink into the dimness. The hut smells of straw and old smoke, and the fire pit in the center is cold, its ashes scattered like a gray snow. You set the sack of food on a wobbly table, the only furniture besides a straw mattress in the corner and a wooden bench along the wall. Quirky tidbit: some medieval newlyweds mark their first day in a new home by carving a small cross above the door, believing it blessed the space and kept out evil spirits, though it might have just been a way to feel settled in a strange place. Robert doesn't seem the carving type, but you notice a sprig of dried thyme tied above the door, maybe his mother's doing, or leftover from some past tenant. Historians still argue whether these protective charms were genuine belief, or just a comforting ritual for anxious couples. You touch the thyme as you pass, hoping it'll bring you some luck in this unfamiliar space. Joke 1, why is a new hut like a medieval charm? You're hoping for magic, but it's mostly just dust. You glance around, taking in the sparse room. There's a dented iron pot by the fire pit, a few clay cups on the table, and a loom in the corner, its threads tangled like your nerves. Robert sits on the bench, stretching his legs, and says, "You'll need to start a fire, we'll eat later." You nod, though you've never started a fire in a strange hearth, and you fumble with the flint and tinder he hands you, your hands shaking from nerves and exhaustion. The sparks catch after a few tries, and you add straw, then a few sticks. the flames flickering to life. Robert watches, not helping but not criticizing either, and you're grateful for the silence. You're 14 in a new home, and every task feels like a test. You're not sure you'll pass. Joke 2. Why is a new fire like a medieval marriage? It's a spark, but you're not sure it'll keep you warm. The hut feels smaller than your family's, the walls closer, the roof lower, and you're hyper aware of Robert's presence. He's your husband now, a stranger in a teal tunic who smells of the river. You unpack the sack, setting the bread and pork on the table, and glance at the mattress in the corner, your stomach twisting at the thought of sharing it tonight. For now, though, there's work to do, fire to tend, food to prepare, a life to start. The village hums faintly outside, dogs barking, a cart creaking, someone shouting about a stray pig, but inside, it's just you and Robert, and the quiet feels louder than the feast ever did. You're a wife now, and this hut is your world, for better or worse. Joke 3. Why is a new hut like a medieval riddle? You're in it, but you don't know what it means yet. You're kneeling by the fire pit in Robert's hut, your hut now the flickering flames casting a warm glow across the dirt floor, the scent of burning straw mingling with the damp earthiness of the wattle and daub walls. The iron ring on your finger catches the light as you poke at the fire, trying to keep it steady, while Robert sits on the bench nearby, chewing on a piece of the leftover bread from the wedding feast. The sack of pork and bread sits on the wobbly table, and the time sprig above the door sways slightly as a draft sneaks through the shuttered window. You're 14, it's your first day as a wife, and you're navigating this new role in a strange space. Every task feeling like a step on a rickety bridge you're not sure will hold. You stand, brushing ash off your beige wedding dress, and turn to the table, deciding it's time to prepare the meal Robert mentioned. Mainstream fact in medieval peasant households, the wife was responsible for daily meals, often starting with simple tasks like reheating leftovers or making pottage, a skill learned early since food was scarce and every scrap mattered. You take the dented iron pot from the fire pit's edge, setting it on the table, and start breaking the leftover bread into chunks, tossing them into the pot with a sliver of pork. There's no water to make proper pottage. Robert's hut doesn't have a bucket yet, a detail you'll need to fix, but you figure the pork's fat will soften the bread into something edible. Robert watches, his expression neutral, and says, "You've cooked before you nod, at home, with my mother, but you don't mention how your pottage always turned out lumpy." He grunts, which you're starting to learn is his way of saying good enough. You add a pinch of dried thyme from a small clay jar on the table, hoping it'll make the meal taste less like yesterday's feast. Quirky tidbit, some medieval wives kept a kitchen bundle, a small sack of herbs like thyme or parsley, tied to their belt for quick seasoning, believing it also brought harmony to the hearth, though it was likely just a practical way to flavor bland meals. You don't have a bundle yet, but you're already thinking you'll need one if you're going to survive cooking for Robert every day. Historians still argue whether these herb bundles were a culinary habit or a subtle way to assert control in a new home. You stir the pot with a wooden spoon, the bread softening into a mushy stew, and set it over the fire, praying it doesn't burn. Joke 1. Why is a medieval meal like a marriage? It's thrown together, and you hope it doesn't fall apart. The hut feels quieter now. The village sounds dogs barking, a cart creaking muffled by the walls, and you're hyper-aware of Robert's presence. He's finished his bread and is now whittling a stick with a small knife, the shavings falling to the floor like tiny snowflakes. "You'll need to fetch water tomorrow," he says, not looking up, "and check the garden, might be some leaks left." You nod, though you've never seen his garden. And the thought of fetching water from the well where Agnes gossips makes you cringe. You're 14, a wife, and the list of tasks is growing cooking, gardening, fetching water, each one a thread in the tapestry of your new life. Joke 2. Why is a wife's day like a medieval loom? You're weaving a life, but the threads keep tangling. The meal's ready, if you can call it that, and you ladle the mushy bread and pork mix into 2 clay bowls, handing one to Robert. He takes a bite, chews slowly, and nods high praise. You guess. You sit on the bench across from him, the bowl warm in your hands, and take a tentative bite. It's bland, but edible, and you're relieved you didn't burn it. The fire crackles, the hut's dimness wrapping around you, and for a moment, you feel a flicker of pride. You've cooked your first meal as a wife, even if it's not much. Robert finishes his bowl, sets it down, and says, "Not bad. Eleanor." You smile, despite yourself, and wonder if this is what marriage will be: small victories, shared in silence. Joke 3. Why is a first meal like a medieval dance? It's clumsy, but you're both trying to find the rhythm. You're sitting on the bench in Robert's hut, the warmth of the fire pit fading as the flames die down. The clay bowl from your first meal as a wife now empty on the table. It's bread and pork mush, a small victory in this strange new space. The afternoon light filters through the shuttered window, casting a soft glow on the dirt floor, and Robert has stepped outside to check the garden, leaving you alone with the hum of the village dogs barking, a cart creaking, someone shouting about a stray pig. You're 14, adjusting to your role as Robert's wife, and now you're about to get advice from the village women, their wisdom a lifeline in this unfamiliar world. You hear voices approaching, and the door creaks open as Agnes and Joan, the onion-loving barter queen, step inside, their russet kirtles dusted with flour from the feast cleanup. Agnes sets a wicker basket on the table. Inside are a few turnips and a clay jar of ale, a small housewarming gift, and Joan gives you a nod. Her expression softer than her usual market glare. Mainstream fact in medieval villages: older women often mentored young brides, sharing practical tips on household management and marriage dynamics. A communal tradition that helped new wives navigate their roles in a patriarchal society. Agnes sits beside you, her voice low and warm. "Eleanor, you're a wife now. We've got some things to tell you." You nod, your hands twisting the hem of your beige dress, the iron ring on your finger catching the light as you brace for their advice. Joan pulls up the bench, her hands clasped, and starts. "First, always keep the fire going. Robert'll grumble if the hut's cold." Agnes chimes in. "And don't let him skip the church. Tithe keeps the priest off your back." You listen, trying to memorize every word, though your mind's still on the meal you just cooked and the garden you haven't seen. Quirky tidbits: some medieval women advised new brides to tie a sprig of lavender to the bedpost, believing it ensured a peaceful marriage by calming the husband's temper, though it might have just been a way to mask the smell of an unwashed spouse. Joan pulls a small lavender sprig from her basket, handing it to you with a wink. "For the bed, trust me." You take it, the scent sharp and floral, and wonder if it'll work on Robert's gruff demeanor. Historians still argue whether these herbal tips were superstition or a subtle way to assert influence in the home. Joke 1. Why is lavender like just a medieval peace treaty? It's supposed to calm things down, but you're not sure it'll hold. Joan leans closer, her voice dropping, and when he's cross, let him talk. Men like to feel heard, even when they're wrong. Agnes nods, adding, "But don't let him boss you. Too much. Cook what you like, not just what he wants." You smile, thinking of the time you added to the meal earlier, a small act of defiance in a day of duty. Their advice is practical, grounded in years of surviving marriage in a village where every day is a grind, and you're grateful for their quiet support. You're 14, a new wife, and their words feel like a map for a journey you've just started, even if the path looks daunting. Joke 2. Wise women's advice like a medieval recipe. It's been passed down, and you hope it tastes better than it looks. The hut feels warmer now, not from the fire, but from their presence. Their voices a soft murmur against the village sounds outside. Agnes pats your hand. You'll do fine. Eleanor, just don't let Robert forget you're a partner, not a servant. Joe nods. And come to the well. If you need us, we're always there. They stand, leaving the basket behind, and you clutch the lavender sprig, their words settling into you like seeds in the garden you'll tend tomorrow. Robert steps back in, his boots muddy, and glances at the basket but doesn't ask about the women. You're a wife, but you're not alone, and that thought carries you through the fading light of your first day. Joke 3 wise village advice, like a medieval, well, it's deep, it's shared, and you'll keep coming back for more. You're sitting on the wobbly bench in Robert's hut, your hut the fading light of the afternoon slipping through the shuttered window, casting long shadows across the dirt floor as the fire pit's embers glow faintly, their warmth barely reaching you. The clay jar of ale Agnes and Joan left sits on the table, untouched, alongside the wicker basket of turnips, and the lavender sprig they gave you is tucked into your beige dress's belt. Its scent a quiet comfort after their visit. Robert's outside again, tending to something in the garden, and the village sounds, dogs barking, a cart creaking, have softened into the gentle hum of evening. You're 14, a wife, on your first day in this new life. And now, as the night creeps in, you're reflecting on what it all means. The weight of your vows, the iron ring on your finger, and the uncertain path ahead. You shift, the bench creaking under you, and glance around the small hut, the dented iron pot, the tangled loom, the straw mattress in the corner that you'll share with Robert tonight. Mainstream fact in medieval Europe. Marriage for peasant girls like you often marked a sharp transition from childhood to adulthood, with little time to adjust, as you took on the roles of wife, homemaker, and eventually mother, all while navigating a new household and community expectations. You think back to the day, the procession to the church, the vows at the door, the feast, the women's advice, and it feels like a whirlwind, a storm that's left you standing in a new place, unsure of your footing. You're a wife now, but you still feel like Eleanor, the girl who chased goats and stitched uneven napkins, and you wonder how you'll grow into this role without losing yourself. The lavender sprig brushes against your hand, and you think of Agnes and Joan, their words a lifeline in this strange new world. Keep the fire going. Let Robert talk. Cook what you like. Quirky tidbit, some medieval newlyweds whispered a prayer to Saint Margaret, the patron saint of childbirth, on their first night, hoping for protection and a peaceful start, though it was often more about soothing nerves than expecting miracles. You don't know the prayer, but you whisper a quiet plea to the saints anyway, asking for strength, for luck, for a marriage that doesn't feel like a cage. Historians still argue whether these prayers were faith or just a way to feel less alone in a new life. You're 14 and the night feels vast, but the hut's walls hold you close. A small space for a big change. Joke 1 wise of first night like a medieval charm. You're hoping for magic, but it's mostly just hope. Robert steps back in, his boots tracking mud, and he glances at you, his expression softer than before. We'll manage, Eleanor, he says, echoing his words from the feast, and you nod, a flicker of warmth in your chest. You're not sure what manage will look like, but you've survived the day, the vows, the feast, the move, the meal, and maybe that's enough for now. The village outside is quieting, the day's chaos fading into night, and you're ready to rest, to let the worries slip away for a few hours. Joke 2, why's a marriage like a village harvest? It's a lot of work, but you're hoping for something good to grow, and so the hut grows quieter. the fire's last embers glowing like tiny stars, their soft light wrapping you in a gentle embrace. The air is cool now, the scent of lavender and straw mingling as the village fades into a distant hum, a lullaby of creaking carts and whispering winds. You're sitting on the bench, the iron ring on your finger, a quiet weight, and the day's whirlwind vows. Feasts. Advice slips away, softening into a memory, a story you'll tell yourself tomorrow. Robert's shadow moves in the dimness, his presence steady, and the straw mattress waits, a promise of rest after a long journey. Your breath slows, each exhale a little longer, the worries of wifehood drifting like leaves on the river outside, carried away by the night's embrace. You're safe here, in this small space, the walls holding you close as the world fades. Let the day go, let the night cradle you, and sink into sleep, softly, gently, into dreams, sweet dreams.